Hey everybody, welcome to the IronTrap podcast.
What's up, guys?
We're doing our audio-only version. If you're not confused, you should be.
Because we are.
We are. We offer a video and audio one. Basically, we do a podcast if you're listening only. We do a podcast every week
Yep.
now, and we just offer, some of them lend themselves to being visual more. So we do some where Michael edit in interesting pictures and video, especially if we're reflecting on old content.
Yep.
But today is an audio-only one, so we'll be doing that. So make sure you hit the subscribe button or whatever. We have these on, if we haven't mentioned it, we're now, YouTube offers podcast uploading as well. So if you want to get all of our content in one shot, YouTube is definitely the place for that. And we offer those, and you can listen and all that good stuff.
Yes. All the confusing things.
Yes. So housekeeping, rather, not bookkeeping.
Carlisle swap meet next weekend.
Yeah, we have, so the Allentown Fairgrounds swap meet that's run by the people that do Carlisle. So don't go to Carlisle. In Allentown, where we have the dirt drags and all that stuff goes on, they have a winter swap meet. It's indoor. It's definitely a good time to get together and hang out with friends and catch up during the middle of the winter. Don't expect to find as much stuff as you would at the actual Carlisle event, but we don't sell a lot, but we have a lot of good time talking to people. It's good to connect, and also sometimes people, we've actually had some good instances where we've gotten leads, but also sold stuff that people just walking through, matter of fact, said, oh, I'm looking for a XYZ, and we might have something coming in. We always have things on the horizon. So, for instance, the 1 year guy walked up and said, oh, I'm looking for a Model A Coupe project.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And we had just gotten back, I think, from Texas, or we were about to go.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
No, we got back because we did Texas around Christmas.
Yeah, we had just gotten back, and we hadn't really posted about what we were doing with all the stuff, and just having a conversation with one of us, and we're like, well, we just got a super solid Texas Model A Coupe barn find in, and he's like, oh my god, and next thing you know, a couple weeks later, we're delivering it to Delaware, and it worked out great. So make sure you can check that out. I think calendars are all gone.
We have a few I have to put up yet. We were waiting on some friends, some hang-arounds that stopped by the shop. I think everyone
pretty much has gotten them.
Yeah, I think there's 7 or 8 left, so they'll be going up soon. I'll put a formal post up. Same with the leftover Ride With Us shirts. So I'll put them both up at the same time. I have to go through and count and figure out what.
And we're also going to take that stuff to the swap meet here next week too, because we'd rather sell that stuff in person.
Sure, I should do that.
I'm making that executive decision.
Good idea.
Anyway, so that's what's going on. Working on the Mercury. Pretty much that's turned into an all-winter project, because you'll see it in an upcoming video. But I started out with a simple week. I was telling Mike it's going to be super simple. I'm just shaving the taillights and the gas filler neck, and it's turned into a...
He's only shaved the taillights. So well, I guess you did fill the hole for the
we got
neck.
both of that, but it's Friday, and I started on Monday first thing. So it's not going so well.
40 hours of hell later.
Yeah, it's not going well, so you'll see that video soon. So today's topic is, I don't know exactly how to concisely put it.
Yeah, we're kind of just going to talk about our experiences selling on the internet. You know, running a parts business. We sell on multiple different platforms, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
And just some tips and tricks and some things that absolutely make it miserable at times, and other time things that we find to be helpful to maybe help you with your online business, or just some funny things that happen when you're running an online parts business that we deal with on a regular basis.
Yeah, we get a lot of people that ask us about this type of stuff. We've pretty much got it figured out for the most part, as far as the running of the buying, listing, selling, shipping. We get a lot of friends that have kind of starting out, maybe buying and selling for just a hobby or to fund their own stuff, and ask us how we do it. And then also we have some friends, like for instance one of our friends today that has a welding business, but he was fabricating some one-off parts, and he calls us asking a shipping question.
Yeah.
It's like, so we're always getting those questions, so we figured we'd cover some of that. Maybe it would be helpful if whether you're selling a couple parts on eBay or Instagram just for fun or to help fund your project, or you're looking to start a little side hustle or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe we can give you some insight into it. And yeah, so
you've been selling on eBay since eBay was probably created?
Just about. Yeah, I mean, I started selling on eBay 99. No, probably. Well, I graduated in 2000, so it would have been 2000.
I was in elementary school.
Mike's a bit younger than I am.
I didn't know the internet existed at that point.
So, yeah, 2000, because I got my first apartment right after I graduated, and I got the internet, and I had we've talked about in other ones. I had this little thing, I forget what it was called, that we used to, on your TV, use the internet. But I was buying and selling on eBay there, and also we talked about in other posts or other podcasts. I was doing forums because I was doing German Kurdistan and selling, and I've kind of watched everything evolve over the years because I've been literally buying and selling since eBay was kind of in its infancy.
Yeah.
In the early days of eBay, it was very exciting for buyers and sellers because
it was like the Wild West.
It was. You could score really crazy deals. So I was more on the buying end back then. But eBay used to be a place where you could buy to resell, which is very interesting. So I used to go on there and buy really rare German car parts, even in Germany and stuff like that. And then I'd get them in person, and then I would sell them at swap. It's like totally flipped. So I would sell them at swap meets, or I would sell them on forums, and I was buying off eBay because so few people were looking at eBay, and I don't even know if they had the option for a buy it now function.
I don't think so.
So everything was auctioned. So you'd catch stuff where somebody would misspell something or whatever and buy it and make a crazy deal.
You could still do that now.
Yeah.
But it's much more difficult because very few people do auctions. I used to do the same thing when I worked night shift. I would watch auctions that ended at like 3 a.m.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would occasionally get deals because people just weren't awake to bid on it. They put in an absentee bid, but it was just way too low and forget about it.
Yeah. So that and then I was selling a lot on forums. Forums used to be the place, honestly, and the classifieds on message boards and forums was incredible. So I used to just go to junkyards and pull parts and sell or buy on eBay and then list on forums, whatever the thing was. But I think it used to be a lot. It was more clunky, but there was a lot more deals to be had on the internet as far as buying the resell goes.
Do you think eBay's gotten better or worse?
I mean, it's better. I don't know. I think the reason it's better is because more people know about it, so it's easier to sell. It's hard to beat eBay as far as selling goes, or buying, but because there's so much more people, there's many more people buying and selling.
Yeah.
The older generation has caught up and is now, most of them, or at least know how to use eBay. That's why people oftentimes ask us why we sell so much on eBay versus a lot of people that are anti-eBay that resell, because our customer base and what we're selling is generally people that are our demographic is definitely skews older, and pretty much everyone in our demographic knows how to use eBay at least.
Yep.
Whereas Instagram and TikTok and all these newer ways to buy, a lot of people don't know how to use it. The older generation, I think, is Facebook Marketplace. They've kind of figured out.
Yeah, they're starting to figure out Instagram too, because we have guys that message us on Instagram like, "Oh, I used to buy stuff from eBay. I found your Instagram, and I'm liking being able to get first shot at some of the stuff that they miss out on because we list some of the better stuff there first." Yeah,
for sure. So eBay I think has changed for a better, mainly because of the people that are on it. I think it's a level playing field now because everybody knows how to search eBay. So if you're selling something or researching something, it's very rare that something gets listed for ultra cheap on eBay because everybody researches it.
And eBay researches it for you. They'll
Yeah.
give you comps as you list it.
Yeah, true.
They'll tell you the median sold price is X, Y, and Z. Sometimes it's really wrong, but
Right.
other times it's spot on.
Pretty close, yeah. But I've found over the years that we get a lot of people that talk to us about, like even friends or just, I should say people in general, especially myself, because I've been doing it so long. I've had people that, when I worked at Eastwood, I even had people that came up to me and just like, they knew I was hustling on the side. They're like, how do you do it? And I know you've talked about that. You had, people you talked to.
Oh,
about
all
it,
the time.
that maybe aren't even car people. Like, how do you do it, or how do whatever. And I gave Mike the same advice I gave everybody over the years: is find something you like, and that's what you should be reselling. So if you have an interest in baseball cards are probably a good thing, or baseball memorabilia. If you're a skateboarder, finding vintage skateboard stuff is probably, because you're gonna also dig it. I mean, it's way easier to sell something you like.
It's also a double-edged sword, though, because you have the same problem that you like it so much. It's sometimes it's a little bit harder to turn a profit because you want to keep. If you're really into it and you're collecting it, you're like, well, I really want to keep all the really good stuff, but if I don't sell some of it, I make $0.
Yeah, and that all goes back on how much of a necessity is the selling to surviving.
Yeah.
So like when I was younger, I sold some amazing stuff that German car parts that I didn't want to sell because I literally had to pay the rent. So like that's what I always tell people that kind of jab, even friends or just people in general that'll jab at me about all the crap I have. I don't need to sell any of this stuff that's in my upstairs area or in my own stash. Now, if something happened and my house needed a roof because we had a catastrophe, damn sure I'll be selling a blower or whatever.
Walls,
yeah, I've got no problem. It's just if you don't need to sell it,
it's your savings account. That's all it is.
It's just nice to look at it and also use it on cars and whatever. So what I've found over the years is you create an inventory of stuff that you don't mind selling, and that's what our business has kind of eventually turned into. I have a lot of friends that buy and sell car stuff or hot rod parts that do the same thing. It's like you go to the swap meet and you buy the junk or the filth to flip, and you're looking for the cool stuff while you're at it for yourself. So you might buy one or two things that you put on the shelf for yourself, and you buy 20 things that you're going to resell, and hopefully you still make some money or break even at least for this stuff you want to keep. But that's always been the thing, is just like find whatever the thing is that you want to buy and sell. Make it something that you enjoy, because it's way easier to sit there and research and learn, because that's a big part of what we've done over the years, and what I've done is just immersing myself in learning about what's good, what's rare, whatever. And whether it's baseball cards or it's whatever, there's always those sleeper items or really rare stuff, and you need to educate yourself, because if you're out in the wild going to yard sales or doing whatever.
And if it feels like a job, you're not going to want to sit down and research it. But if you enjoy it, it's like it turns into a hobby almost.
Yeah, but it does take work.
Yes.
I know a lot of friends that resell that struggle with the whole the whole process. So buying is fun.
Yes.
Knowing that you're going to make a deal, you're going to make some money on something that you found in the wild is fun and great, satisfying. Listing it is and not so bad. Getting the money is super fun when you sell it and somebody pays you. Shipping it is generally not fun.
That's why Matt hired me.
Yes.
He was having a fun time buying it, but the selling part was the not fun part.
Listing and shipping are the two things that are not very fun, and that sometimes can feel like a job. But you have to just find a routine. That's always been a thing. If you're looking to do this, or you got a bunch of stuff laying around that left over from project cars or whatever, just get yourself in a routine. Just do 2 items.
Yeah, you don't have to burn the world down in one day and list all of it right away. I found, I think I have like 11,000 photos in my phone.
Holy crap.
But it's a lot of kids stuff too. Right. But I take photos all day long and then sit down and, over a week, try and get through all of them, spend a bunch of time on the weekend while I'm just sitting watching TV, and it doesn't have to be a ton of them in a day, but you spend an hour and you list 20, 30 items. It's a big chunk, and you get rewarded with that through eBay. When you list consistently or large batches,
Mm-hmm.
we notice jumps in our sales as we, dump a ton of product online.
Yeah, and I think eBay with their algorithm, if they see a seller, I've talked about this with one of my buddies that resells as well the same stuff that we do, and he noticed that as well. Even sells his volume isn't as high as ours, but he noticed the same thing. It's like their algorithm, they kind of reward you, and they start showing your items higher on the search because you're an aggressive seller, so they're gonna try and get your stuff going. But I think a good discussion. Another thing we get a question about is, oh, I don't want to sell on the internet. I don't want to pay taxes. I don't want to deal with eBay's fees, or I don't want to deal with this or that, or people complaining. We get a lot of people that are very opinionated about.
What's funny is their opinion about eBay, and then they'll also complain that they didn't sell anything at the swap meet.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say, this swap meet sucks. I didn't sell anything. I'm like, well, we didn't sell anything either, but our eBay store did really good this week, and we sold a ton of shit online.
Yeah,
so
it's like anything, whether you're looking at the stock market or anything, diversifying. It's a nice word that you probably hear through business a lot. Diversify. So if you're diversifying the way that you're selling, you can certainly list on Facebook. You can certainly list at the swap meet. You're set up at the swap meet. You can do all these different ways. But I guarantee you, we've had some friends, and I'm not going to name names, but we've had some friends over the years that have been very anti-eBay and things like that. And we finally pushed them hard and said, like, you got it, man, you got to get on eBay. They're selling the same stuff as us, which is like we're very non-competitive. It's like they sell exactly the same stuff as us. You got to get on eBay. You got to start listing more and just making the effort. I know it sucks to like pay taxes on this stuff and blah blah blah, but like once you're getting to the point where you're selling that much stuff, like if you just got 10 items left over from your Roadster build, okay, I get it. You don't want to pay taxes or whatever, but like if you're trying to sell and create
as a business, create
additional funds, whether you like it or not, you're kind of running a business in a small sense, and you're going to have to do it. If you're complaining you're not making enough money at the swap meet or wherever, that means that you're valuing the sales enough that it means you're treating it like a business. If you're worried about, because there's plenty of old guys at the swap meet, they sell $25 of stuff and they have a fantastic time, and you don't hear them bitching because they're not there to make money. They're just there to go to the swap meet and enjoy.
Yep, and they have nothing but time.
Yeah, they have nothing but time. But if you're complaining about not selling enough, or I sold more last year and not, like, okay, then you're kind of treating this like a business, whether you're telling yourself you're not or you aren't. So we've had a handful of friends that they finally started listing, and then all of a sudden, like a couple months later, they're like, holy crap, thank you. Like, I'm selling so much more stuff, and it's like...
And the stuff that you sell on eBay is stuff you can't...
sell other places.
Yeah, like a flathead group... You'll never sell a fuel pump stand or a fuel pump, but you list that kind of stuff on the internet, and there's people out there that are looking for that don't have Facebook or don't have any hot rod friends around them. They'll just buy it because they need it.
And also, I think we've talked about a little bit with scammers on Facebook and social media being so bad. At least on eBay, that's another thing that I like is you're kind of vetted. Like
100%.
If you look, there's been feedback. So if you look at any seller like ourselves that has, it'll even tell you how long they've been on eBay.
I think ours says 2012 or 2016, I think.
Yeah, and that's like multiple. I've had multiple accounts over the years that I opened and forgot the password and changed and whatever. So the one that we have now, I've had since I think I started doing the antique stuff pretty seriously and vintage clothing and whatever. 33,000 or 3,500 feedback. Mm-hmm. So it's like you just have to look at the seller, and if they have a ton of feedback and the majority of it's not negative. Yeah, and well, honestly, anymore with eBay, if you get too many negatives, they actually close your account. Yeah. So like,
to be honest, not many people leave feedback anymore either.
Yeah,
not very rarely, but the amount of sales that we do, we barely get a quarter in feedback.
I think any more people just eBay makes, and I've understood this from a lot of people, and I know this is a pain in the butt. to start a new seller's account on eBay. They make it pretty difficult now.
Jump through some hoops.
Yeah, jump through hoops. They withhold your money for like quite a while.
PayPal does that too.
Yeah, so like they're trying to stop people from being scammers. So you can feel a little more confident buying on eBay that you're dealing with a real person. It's going to, and the nice thing with eBay is getting into some of the stuff that sucks for us. eBay is very buyer centric.
Yeah.
So if you have a problem with an item, whether it's valid or not, they almost always side with the buyer.
Yep.
So
automatic returns are the worst thing ever.
Yeah, and even if you as a seller put that you do not take returns, or it's a vintage item or used item or whatever, they will still authorize the return and take the money automatically from the seller. So you could kind of like, people know, so that's why buyers sometimes gravitate to eBay, because if you're looking at that fuel pump stand, you can see the person, their history, their everything, and it's more of a streamlined process. You hit buy it now.
It's like shopping on Amazon now.
Yeah, so they made it very easy. Whereas Facebook, you got to message the person. How do I pay? X,
we
Y,
should
Z.
do a podcast on how to spot scammers on Facebook, because I feel like people still get scammed all the time.
I feel like it's pretty easy.
It's so easy, but
people get scammed.
Oh, dude, it's so on these Facebook groups. You just look at the comments. They're like, "I sent you a message. Please, here's my phone number. Call me." It's like, dude, it's so obvious. I can tell from a mile away.
Yeah. So, I guess what's the big hurdles you think for internet selling nowadays?
Well, for us, just the size of our business's organization is keeping things organized in a manner that you can efficiently find them when they sell.
That's huge for an individual, because I know some friends that sell on a smaller scale that's one thing that they have struggled with, because they'll like list an item and it maybe doesn't sell as quick, and then they can't find it. And it happens to us still.
Oh, it still happens to us all the time. Our problem is because we do in-person and swap meets, I drop the ball sometimes and things don't get taken off eBay, and then 6 months later they sell. It's like, where the hell did I put that?
Or Matt goes on a Sunday because he needs the item and he's working on something, pulls it off the shelf and forgets to tell Mike that I used it on the car.
It's mostly me forgetting to take it off, but I have to cancel orders every now and then because it just happens, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, it's especially bad for us, like doing the big swap meets, because Carlisle and Hershey and some of those swap meets, we sell so many items that the backlog to go and find those items and take the listings down can be a little difficult. So that's definitely something I would say, if you're going to start doing this, try and get an organized way to, and that was my big stumbling point that made selling really not fun for me. When I was doing it, working a day job, was like, I had such an unorganized way of putting the stuff out there. It's like, where's the item? Is it in this room? Is it in the garage? Is it in a box? Is it wherever?
The nice thing is, if you're doing the business by yourself, the organization only has to work for you. The difficult part with all of us is like, we have to talk about it, because it's like, this makes sense to me. Does this make sense to everyone else on how to find it in here when we organize it? And we had a ton of those conversations when we were putting the new building up and moving parts, because it was like, do you think this should go here or over here? Let's get on the same page now before we put it away.
I think one of the biggest things that's been helpful for us, and again, this might be larger than your average person, but like if you're for keeping track of things, and again, I'm probably speaking to somebody that's more treating it like an actual business. If you're starting to think about buying and selling and going to swap meets and whatever, we started numbering places where we get stuff from. So like Spring Carlisle will get a number every year.
Yep.
If we go to an auction, it'll get a number for that auction, whatever we bought. So the other thing we just started doing recently, so everything has a number from where it's coming from, so we can kind of look back and say, oh, you know what? Spring Carlisle last year, we bought a ton of great stuff and sold it, and it did fantastic. Yeah. But what we're doing to avoid the stuff getting used or and not taken down is putting a letter. So we put an L. So if you ever buy anything from us and you see like paint marker with a number, or a number and an L, that just means the estate we bought it from or wherever.
My favorite thing at swap meets is when people pick something up and there's a number on it, and they're like, "This isn't a 27. This is a 3031." I'm like, "Thank you. I'm well aware. I've been trying to get better at when I take stuff to swap meets, wipe all those numbers off because people get insanely confused. Like, this isn't a 27. This is a Model A. Why is it marked 27?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's no different than going to Walmart and there's a SKU.
Yeah.
You know, it's just people just don't quite get it. But we started putting an L, and that was just like a random thing. I just came up I'm like, this just put an L for listed. It was first we started writing listed, but it's easier for us.
Yeah.
Put an L, and then the other thing is we have multiples.
That was the big problem.
Yeah, so we were like, I was with me helping Mike sometimes like. I would take photos of a certain pair of something, and then you throw it back on the shelf with the 10 other pairs, and then Mike has to search. So now if he sees the L, okay, that's the pair. He doesn't have to spin the item over and find the defect with the photo.
Do you know how many hours I spent at the old building doing that to myself because I'm a dummy?
Yeah.
Like, have a pair of headlight buckets, like, say, Model A, they're stainless. There's 30 of them. You're like, I know I took a photo of 2 of them. You're zooming in the photos looking for the dents. Like, I think this is the pair.
So even if you're only doing this on a small scale, doing something like that is definitely been helpful for us. It just helps you, understand where it is. Now, we have some friends that are super OCD, like Jeff, and he photograph an item, list it, and then put it right in a flat rate or a box and tape it up, which if you're only selling online, works great.
Oh, yeah.
And then you write on the box what it is. It's weighed. Everything's good. So when you sell it, it's super easy. You just put a label on it, boom, you go off. But like for us, that just doesn't work because it
take up so much space. Oh my God.
It would, and also like we get people to buy multiple items. You get somebody that comes in person and wants to look at it. Somebody sends us an email and says, "Can you get me a photo of the backside? So I want to make sure it's XYZ." And then you got to cut the tape, open it up, retape. It's just for us, it doesn't work. Maybe for some people that are super OCD organized, I could see how that would work. But for us, it doesn't. It doesn't work. But I could understand how it could. But like the way I look at it is like you don't see Amazon with every single item already pre-boxed.
Oh, you want to know a crazy thing? Amazon's actually not organized. Their warehouses are not that organized. But everything gets scanned in when it gets put in a spot. So like when you pick an item, it'll tell you it's in. So I interviewed at Amazon. So I got a tour of like the facility years and years ago. It might be different now. This is like 2014. Everything gets scanned in and put in a cubby. And it'll tell you what cubby it's in, but there's other shit in that cubby. It's not like all of the same item, because sometimes they only have one on hand at that warehouse. So there'll just be like a bunch of random stuff in a cubby, but it's all marked so you can find it, but it's like not as organized as you think it would be.
Wow.
And it, like when I saw it and got a tour of it, I was like, that's insanity. You think like all the bath stuff would be together, and it's not at all.
Maybe it's too time consuming with how the stuff comes in.
Yo, 100%. That's how it is. They said they just get pallets of random stuff and they just kind of
create a cubby and put it there. And as long as everybody knows that item is in that space.
Well, it gets scanned into a computer system. So when they have people, people pick it, it says go to row X, bin 3, and it's there.
Yeah, we're not that organized. So we have like a location for that item. But I've seen that on eBay and some sellers that will actually write in their listing like the location.
We started
shelf.
to do that. Remember at the other building?
Oh yeah.
I had Luke number all the shelves, and we were going to start adding that, but it got to the point where it's like it started to get too many shelf numbers.
Yeah, it's confusing, and we're not to the point where we have like a bunch of employees, so everybody that's involved, whether it's myself or just you and I basically. So Mike or I.
Well, Steve knows pretty well where things are at now too.
Steve knows where stuff is, and all three of us also know what an item is for the most part. So if if I'm helping Mike out or something, I know that the 33, 34 shelf is here, and I know roughly what that part is. So I can put items away and find them pretty good. So some of it is just learning it, where the location is, and upstairs, downstairs, all that. But I would say some of the stuff that helped me over the years that One, the biggest thing, and you got to see this because we've been friends long enough, focus is a big thing. So when I first got real serious about reselling, buying and selling, and I was trying to like really create an additional income source. I was doing it for years. I used to pay my rent and lost my job a bunch of times, or I shouldn't say lost, quit my job on a whim. I used to be really bad for that. If you pissed me off, I'd just quit, or I didn't like it. I'd be like, I don't feel like going to work anymore. This sucks. And then I'd just go on a road trip or something. I paid my rent that way. But eventually I got to a point where I was like, I was working at Eastwood, but I just wasn't satisfied. Contrary to popular belief, I didn't make a lot of money at Eastwood. A lot of people think that I did.
The majority of business, that job really doesn't make that much. You would think like a social media manager, it's kind of a mid-level job for the majority of.
It's also where, and we're getting in a side tangent here, but Eastwood's located at where it's located for a reason.
Yeah, that's how all businesses are.
If they were located in L.A., my pay scale would have been a lot better, but my cost of living. So the Eastwood, in the grand scheme of things, they paid appropriately for the area.
Yep.
But they could have easily went to King of Prussia, and the pay would have had to be a lot higher. So, but it's the same idea as what we got going here. I worked at Eastwood because it was a cool place to work. It was in the the niche that I enjoyed, so I never really minded it. But there got to be a point where I needed to make more money to get where I wanted to be with buying a house and my hobby and everything else. So I started getting really heavy into reselling and going to auctions and stuff. And I mean, you remember it was like I started doing anything I could make money on in an auction. I just started going to auctions. That was my way of finding inventory because there was the most deals and there was auctions every day in a 100-mile radius. So I started going every waking moment to auctions and buying. So I was buying anything I could make money on. That was my knowledge realm was pretty large. So it was like automotive. It was vintage.
I used to love coming over to your old place because it was just like the craziest. You just open because all your roommates had moved out too, which was
while my roommates were there, because we lived there for a little while and it wasn't as crazy, and then it got real serious about buying and selling, and then we had a closed-in back porch with the house rancher that we rented.
Yeah,
and it was a pretty big area. I mean, I don't know if it was 1,000 square feet or something like that.
It was probably. It was probably 500. It was probably 25 by 25.
Okay, yeah,
500 square foot,
and it was a closed-in back porch, so it wasn't totally out of elements, but mostly. And I just started filling that with furniture and anything I bought at auctions because you could drive your car around to the back of it, or truck, and we could unload it right into there. And
there was just the peak of the madness. It was literally just an aisle from the screen porch door to the sliding back door of the house. Yep. Just like an aisle straight to the door, and that was it.
And then I used one of the spare bedrooms when the roommates started moving out, and I was just because that was the other thing. I started making enough money that I was just like, I didn't need roommates. So as my roommates moved out, not like anything bad was happening, just different roommates bought a house or moved in with a girlfriend or whatever. I was just like, I don't need a roommate. Like so I turned one of the bedrooms into my photography room and inventory room.
And then one of them was mid-century modern.
Oh yeah, at the end there, yeah.
You just open the door and it's nothing but bureaus and like mid-century furniture just stacked as tight as it could possibly be.
Yeah, and then eventually the basement became packed as well with all kinds of stuff, and it was just it got out of control, but it was good because I was selling, but I was spread too thin and
That's the key to diversifying. If you diversify too much, it just becomes absolute chaos.
I wasn't organized. So if I had a bunch of people helping me, sure, it wouldn't be a problem. But it was just me. It was too much. So I was actually doing a disservice to myself because I got to the point where, I had to research too much, or it was too left field, and it was very labor intensive, physically and mentally, to be like moving all this different type of stuff around and finding it, and you got to sell the stuff at the right area, and it's like I was trying to sell it vintage markets, oddity markets, swap meets, car swap meets and everything, and it's like it got to be too much. So I
Did you ever accidentally mess up and forget what swap meet you were going to?
no
And you load your truck with furniture and you go to an automotive swap meet by
No.
accident. And you get there like, ah, shit.
no, but I definitely like. It's such a pain in the butt when you do some of these flea markets that are non-automotive related. A lot of them I found over the years are not in the same place every year.
Yeah.
So it's that cluster fuck of
We're far enough in. It's okay.
yeah, clusterfuck. If your kids are watching, I apologize. Or listening. Of not knowing where your space is.
Yeah.
So I remember I did one in Philly that was near the shipyard, I think.
Was it the punk rock flea market?
No, it was actually the people that put on the Brooklyn Flea.
Oh, okay.
For a little while, they started doing the Philly Flea, and they were kind of moving around Philadelphia, around the city at different spots. So I did a couple of them, and I remember the one I did was like, I think it was at the shipyard. It was I don't remember where exactly it was, but it was like, you didn't know where your space was. I brought a trailer. Most of the vendors were not as big of a setup as I was, so like I brought a little U-Haul trailer and my pickup truck, and parking was not great. So I then had to find a space to move my truck and trailer because we couldn't keep it in our spot. And it's like, you don't know how the customers are going to come in. So like the nice thing is if you get some preset ways that you're selling, you kind of get a rhythm. So we've done Carlisle enough times, we know kind of how to set our booth up.
Exactly where to put the trailer, exactly where the tent goes.
And even that goes into if you're buying and selling and you sell it up at your local, like we have a really good local flea market that's like miles down the road from us. If you start selling at some of those kind of flea markets, like just as going as a buyer, you kind of know, oh, this flea market's really early. Everybody sets up early. They tear down early. Or these couple of rows are the rows to be in, and you got to be early. So, like, I think figuring some of that stuff out.
And just what to bring.
Yeah,
that's
true.
another thing.
Yep.
We've learned over the years there's a different crowd between Carlisle and Hershey. Even though a lot of the same people come to both events, what we sell between those two events is vastly different.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, a lot of times, we show it sometimes, but I'll have a pallet for Hershey that's just really good stuff we know we'll sell at Hershey, and then Carlisle gets a little bit of different. There's a lot of stuff that crosses over, but
for sure.
Even just learning what to bring to those, because like Allentown's coming up, we talked about, we'll to bring totally different stuff to that than we would bring to other shows.
Yes, I think if you can focus, and if you're going to do in-person selling, I still think in-person selling is a very valid way to,
and it's a good marketing tool as well.
Yeah, I think it's a valid way to sell. I just think that everything has changed with buying and selling and vintage and all that stuff, is that you can't really bank on making a crap ton of money at an in-person flea market or whatever. There's a lot of that thing where you're going to make something out of it by either finding something, making a connection, or maybe you meet a buyer that they start following you on Instagram and they buy something later at Instagram or whatever. And Instagram was probably my biggest hack a lot of our success or my success. And it's like anything, again, going back to stock market, for example, if you're ahead of the curve, you make a lot of money.
Yep.
So if you buy a stock for an up and coming company and you stick with it, you're going to make a lot of money. So, I was selling in the early days of eBay. In the early days of Instagram, saw that people were starting to sell on Instagram. And it was interesting because I was watching certain like stores, vintage stores, they were starting Instagrams and they were listing the stuff as they were getting it in. And it was selling like instantly. I'm like, I wonder if I start doing that and I'll just ship the stuff. So I started our Instagram was originally Old School Finds, and then we changed it to IronTrap Finds as it evolved. And I would and it's funny because our business model, we still do it, this idea to this day. It's like I would buy stuff at an auction, and then I would, as I was unloading it that evening or the next day out of my car or my truck, I would take photos and list it immediately on Instagram. And I would sell the stuff like boom, boom, boom. So you guys see now, if you follow our channel, we do a similar idea where we buy a box truck load of stuff, we do an unloading video, and that's our way of just kind of like giving people first grabs to follow our social media. So it's a quicker way to sell it. So we're not like listing it on eBay and writing a description. We get a guy that emails us right away and says, oh, that left front fender you just showed, I've been looking for one of them. I'll take, whatever, I'll take it. So I started doing Instagram, and it was kind of crazy because we were one of the first couple people to do it early on. And it was like, I was listing items, and it was like a feeding frenzy. Like if we had cool stuff, I had a lot of tattoo artists because, just knowing the tattoo.
And you're not talking about, this is the vintage business, not car part stuff.
Yeah, this was the vintage business. But I just understanding your customer and your followers. So like I was real heavy into the tattoo scene, and I was going to conventions and hanging out at a bunch of shops and all stuff. And you kind of started noticing the decor that tattoo artists liked and the people that hang out with that. Again, stuff that I knew. And it was like, oh man, if I start buying vintage religious prints and weird oddities and stuff like that, and just creepy stuff that like the average person wouldn't think of buying early in those days. And I was selling the stuff like, it was like instantly. It was so fast. And we started getting to the point where I was like, okay, same idea. We're listing on Wednesdays at 5 o'clock or every day at 5 o'clock. And we started training people, much like the channel, Tuesdays, Fridays, Sundays.
7 a.m.
7 a.m. People would watch our Instagram, and I would list an item, and it would sell in like seconds. Boom, a guy would take it. Boom, a person would take it. And it was like, I started figuring out, oh, well, if I list 15 items a night at an average, a median price of $50, I'd make I'd make this much money. So I was like kind of starting to figure out like I could make an extra couple $1,000 a week by listing this number of items. So in those early times of doing that on Instagram, killing it, man.
I can only imagine.
We were killing it. It was just selling so well. Now, again, compared to what we do nowadays, not killing it. But like, but
in your mind at that time,
well, I was making
comparable what you're.
I was making the same money or more than I was making at my day job.
Yeah,
and I was fortunate that I worked at a company that I could get shipping supplies out of the dumpster for free, and all that stuff, and it helped streamline the process. But yeah, like I think that's a big part of it. So, you've seen like the TikTok shop thing, and live shopping is becoming a more popular thing.
TikTok's also potentially going away in like 10 days.
Who knows? I don't know. But
live shopping has become big for our niche now with automotive stuff. There's a ton of people that are doing like live swap meets on Instagram.
Yeah, and that I think is going to become more of a thing for sure. I think that's something that Mike and I have talked about on the horizon, like taking that whole unloading video a step further and doing a live.
Yeah.
And it's like, do we do a live as we're unloading, or after we get unloaded, do a live and just walk around? And if people start claiming stuff, it's just making it easier for people to buy and sell.
Yep.
The thing that we struggle with is we work normal business hours. So doing live social selling, more of our people are going to be at nighttime. So it's hard for us. It's 8 o'clock at night to be doing a live walk around because we've been working all day. So that's something we have to figure out.
And now that the building's here, it's easier because back at the warehouse, the lighting was terrible.
Yeah.
And it was much more difficult to do. So now that we have the building, we have good lighting. We're working on getting internet in the building in the near future because it's like a little jail cell. You get no cell service inside.
Yeah.
So those are just hurdles we have to overcome to potentially start doing it is all really.
But I think we've been testing it over the years. We did a live once or twice, like at Hershey.
The one we did at Hershey the one time did really well.
Yeah, so we're going to start doing a little bit more of that because I think people have shown interest in that. And we didn't go all in with it yet, but I think it's going to slowly become a thing. But like anything, it's going to get saturated. So we're already seeing a lot of people doing the live swap meet thing. They're trying to do it. I think it's difficult if you don't have a good following to get a lot of people to follow, to do it. I think the other thing that makes it a little difficult on the few that I've watched that aren't like the bigger ones, is if you don't have the stuff.
Or if it's more common stuff.
Yeah, it makes it kind of not that fun to watch. So like the parts swapper ones, Mike that does that. The cool thing is he travels around all over the country. So he goes to these guys' shops that you can't just go to. So going to Titus's place and doing a swap meet at his place, he's got great stuff. So he's going to put some decent stuff for the live. So
they do a cool thing too. They'll have 2 or 3 people bring stuff to wherever they're at.
Yeah.
So you'll have 2 or 3 different guys that bring decent stuff, and there's a wide variety of items for sale.
And it's better stuff. So
Yeah.
that's the key thing. And I mean, it's the same idea as swap meets in person. You're to just walk by the booth that has like greasy junk. But
Books.
if the guy's got like really good stuff, you're going to stop. You're going to take a look around.
Yep.
So I think the live shopping thing is going to be, I mean, it is big, but I think for the vintage world and automotive world, I think it's going to get more popular. I think that's the only way you can survive if you have a physical location anymore, is if you're doing social media selling in your store. It's like flip-flop. Now, like the store is kind of the secondary thing. And I think you need to be doing, social media selling, and the store is just kind of like secondary.
Yeah. It's a marketing tool to get people in, but not as big as it was 10 years ago.
No, if you're gonna kind of rely on selling in person, you're not,
diversify.
Yeah, diversify. Because I see it in my little town. I have a cool little town that the main street's getting better and more tourist stuff going on, and there's been numerous like little vintage shops that have come and gone, and it's just like they don't have great stuff. Like if it's like half. I mean, for me, when I go in a vintage, because we go to vintage.
Oh, I go to antique malls
all
weekly.
The time, and it's like the vintage stores. If you walk in them, and it's like 80% of it's like crafty crap
or new
Yeah.
repops of vintage stuff drives me absolutely nuts.
It's going to be hard to sell, and it's just not going to. These places close pretty quickly. They come and go. So, but I think so a couple of things that we've found. So I'll let you speak on it, like the shipping side of it. That seems to be a struggle for everyone.
It's still a struggle for us at this time too.
Yeah, but what's some hacks that have made it easier for selling? For us, as far as shipping goes.
So one of the big things, it's not necessarily for, it's more about saving money, is finding supplies for free.
Oh, yeah.
Or for cheap. So I was fortunate for a very long time, even before I started working for Matt. I was still involved with the YouTube channel. The company that I worked for, our parts department, I worked in maintenance. Our maintenance parts department was throwing packing material away for who knows how long, for decades.
Yep.
So the one day I literally watched our parts manager fill a bag full of paper and throw it in the trash. And I was, what do you do? Where are you going with that trash bag? He's like, I've always thrown it away. I said, well, can I have it? He's like, I don't care what you do with it. I'm going to put it in a bag. You can just take it or I throw it in the trash. It doesn't matter where it goes. So I started working there in 2015. So probably since like 2017, I was getting a trash bag, 55-gallon trash bag every day or two for 7 years.
Yep.
And for the longest time in Matt's basement, there would just be piles of trash bags for packing material. And up until 3 months or 4 months ago, I still had the same hookup. I don't work there anymore, but they were just throwing it away. So I just show up, grab packing material, and packing material is insanely expensive.
But it's one of those things that's crazy how wasteful businesses are.
Oh my gosh.
That was the same thing when I worked at Eastwood. It was like the returns department would get all these returns back, and it was the packing material that the items came in, and they would take the item out, look at it, and decide if it was usable to sell in the store, the physical store, or they were going to just scrap it. And then all the packing material then gets thrown in the dumpster. And that's what I used to do too, is I would go back to the gal that worked in returns and just be like, can I go through are all these boxes?
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, same thing. I'm going to put them in the crusher and get rid of them. And it's like, well, I'll use them. So we kind of had a verbal agreement that she would leave the bin there till the end of the day. I would pack my stuff after hours and I would use like old welder boxes or whatever. And so I think one hack would definitely be, like, we've done it a little bit, but like if you have friends that work at car dealerships.
I was going to say any type of
Yeah.
business, factories, car dealerships, ask all your friends. Be like, do you guys throw away boxes? I mean, if you want to have a heart attack, go into uline.com and look at the price of a box.
Oh my God.
It's a lot more expensive than you think it is. So majority of our boxes are recycled. There's a bunch of local businesses, a bunch of our friends that bring us recycled boxes, and it saves us an insane amount of money in the long run. And we're recycling. I enjoy doing it because all that stuff just ends up potentially in the landfill or
It gets more uses before it gets thrown away.
We have had one person complain that their item was sent in a used box, which drives me absolutely insane because it's a used car part. Who cares if it shows up in a used box? Which is so funny.
Beat it.
Yeah.
We don't want you as a customer. I think, but like, and another one is you probably have a friend or a friend who has a spouse that has an Amazon addiction.
Yep.
And we have a local car guy that his, like, I don't know if it's his.
I think it's his cousin.
His cousin or his cousin's wife has an Amazon addiction. So, like, they literally have a shopping problem. So he comes over with his pickup truck filled every month or two with boxes that they're going to throw out. So they just, like, fill the back of his pickup truck with boxes and packing material. He brings them here. We unload them. And it's, it's a great thing to do. And he's, they're keeping stuff out of the.
But Facebook Marketplace, there's always people putting free moving boxes up.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ship larger items, finding larger boxes is actually a lot easier than finding small boxes because there's always people moving. So there's large boxes out there constantly.
That's why you got to find the Amazon addicted shopper.
Yeah, you get those nice small boxes.
You get all those small boxes, but like dealerships are a great one.
Yeah.
The hack I used to have, and it's just not a thing anymore when I was younger, was bicycle shops.
Yeah.
When I first started doing this, bicycle shops were amazing. I used to go to all the bike shops in the area, and they all, like, bicycle frames come in these great, long, skinny boxes. So for shipping, like, body panels and all kinds of stuff, I used to go to these places, and if you get friendly back and then, if you got friendly with the bike shops, they usually built bicycles, like, one day a week or one time a month or whatever, and you kind of could, like, time it right. But I think if you just, all your local businesses in your town, depending how serious you are, if you start going and asking about it, you can get packing material.
Yeah, scrounging is literally, it's necessary to run a small business because the cost of everything is rising, boxes, packing material, and it makes the shipping way more miserable if you're like, this box cost me $7. As you're packing up the item, you're like, it takes the cost out of your...
And it's a pain in the butt to be like I got to go to Walmart, or Staples or whatever, buy bubble wrap, buy a box, hope that the box is big enough. Oh, the box is super thin and crappy, and then you're going back for another box or whatever. So, like, if you know you're going to start doing this regularly, saving boxes, flattening them has been something we've been doing lately because they take up so much space. So it stinks a little bit to flatten them and then have to retape them. But if you don't want, like, my basement just turned into, like, before we started doing this, like, full time, my basement was just like, there was a moment where the one whole corner was just a mountain
cardboard,
of unflattened boxes.
It was a mess.
It was a mess. So, yeah, I think that on the shipping side.
And if you are going to buy new boxes, buy in bulk from a company like Uline. The price is shocking, but if you say go to Staples or Walmart, you're paying more per box if you buy 25 in a bundle. You can buy them on Amazon too. I've found boxes for a reasonable price on Amazon in bulk.
And the one other thing I know that it kind of happened by accident, I figured it out, but because of the warehouse situation, we now buy pallet loads of flat cardboard. So if you're shipping, especially this is for people that are shipping car parts, almost never are you having a car part that's the same size every time.
No.
So we, years ago when I first started renting at the warehouse, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, they had a renter that left, and there was like 2 pallets of 4x8 sheets of just flat cardboard that they abandoned. So the gentleman that ran the warehouse, that was the property manager, one day was like, saw what I was doing. He's like, hey, you want this cardboard? This dude left it behind. Like, we're just going to eventually throw it away.
Which is what we were very lucky with. A lot of stuff that we...
Yeah, there's a couple renters that left behind a bunch of packing materials, and we were using them for years. But what we figured out really quickly, or I figured out, was those 4x8 sheets were fantastic because it didn't matter if it was a fender or an intake manifold or whatever. You could kind of craft your own box.
Yeah, because you're starting from scratch. Because I've taken boxes and made different shaped boxes, and it's a giant pain in the ass where you just take that flat sheet, and I've got it down to a science now. I know how to build boxes like insanely fast.
Yeah.
And you just build a box around it, and it fits right. It's sturdy.
Yep.
You know, you're cutting boxes and retaping them together, and it looks like a failed art project.
Yeah.
And as soon as one person mishandles it, it's just going to explode.
Right. So that's definitely a thing if you're thinking of another way, because it's very cost effective too to buy that 4x8 sheet. Because it's the same idea. You can use the scraps that are left over to make a smaller box or whatever. Or cardboard's cardboard.
Start your fire in your wood stove.
Yeah, we do that too. Recycling. We're always doing that. So the big sheets has been a huge help for us, and that's been really
the only downside is they're just big sheets. They don't store. There's like no good way to store them out of the way.
Right.
They're just so if you're doing it out of your house, it's might be a little bit more tough, but you could buy them in different sizes. We just buy a size that's convenient for us.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not planning to go down the route like we are selling doors or body panels, you could definitely get a smaller sheets.
U-Haul also sells.
They're pretty affordable, we found.
Yes, very affordable. When we do a lot of these buyouts, obviously we're renting a U-Haul, so we'll buy them there. Fairly affordable, and they also sell like wardrobe boxes and like weird big TV boxes. Mm-hmm. So if you're doing it more of a case by case basis, don't check out you have to go to like the big main U-Hauls that have
and they have a bulk discount. So I think it's like if you buy 5 or more, the price goes way down. So like if you know that there's one size that works for you, buy 5 or 10 of the shot, but you don't have to invest like Uline like we do. Where I don't know what's a pallet costs $700.
Yeah, I just picked up a pallet of a bunch of different stuff. It was like $900.
Yeah, so if
for a pickup truck load of cardboard.
Yeah, so if you're only selling $900 worth of stuff as a side hustle,
it's not a good idea.
Not a good idea, but it's just something to look into. The U-Haul store we use when traveling a lot, and it's very, very helpful. So that's been some of the stuff for shipping wise.
The other thing I was going to say shipping wise, just real quick, is explore options for shipping services.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of really great shipping services out there. We use an app called ShipStation. We pay for it because we use a bunch of different things. But there's a good website called Pirate Ship that you can use UPS and USPS through. And all they are is they have a big bulk account, and they're just funneling all their traffic through their account. So you get really good rates. They have a really good export service that we use because I ship stuff to like 30 different countries over the years. So just explore options. Don't just go to the UPS store or your local post office to the counter. That's going to be the tip top, the most expensive. If you invest a little time to do it online, you'll find a way better rate that helps you and the customer.
And don't be afraid. One thing that's made our business successful over the years, I've never said no about shipping something.
Yeah.
We run. It's frustrating to me as a buyer sometimes. If you run into something where the guy's like, I absolutely will not ship.
And it's nothing large or cumbersome.
Yeah,
it's like it's not that big.
Even I just mean if you're trying to sell and make money, like bigger things you can ship. Yes, they take more work, but like a lot of these freight companies, we do it all the time. You can drop off at their depot
and pick up.
So if you're looking to sell something and it's worth your time, so you got an engine and it's a couple $1,000 and the buyer's willing to pay the shipping, it's a little extra work, but you can go find a free pallet at a local business.
Go to Harbor Freight, buy some cheap ratchet straps.
Yep, and strap the engine down and shrink wrap it and ship it. And if that makes the sale, great. But like we run into it more oftentimes than not. The guy that wants to buy that big, bulky, expensive item, lives nowhere near us, so we have to ship it freight.
Yep.
So if you build the pallet on your pickup truck and then you drop it off at the dock, they have a forklift there. So we do it in our videos a lot. You'll see us like we're wrapping pallets in the U-Haul truck because on site we don't have a forklift or a tractor to lift the stuff. So we pack the pallets in the truck, and then we will slide the pallets back or in their place, and then the forklift guy at the depot can lift it off.
And a lot of times those dudes are cool, and they'll bring you a pallet jack, so
Yep.
you can pallet jack the pallets out.
Yep.
And I figured while I'm doing plugs of websites we use, I use all of our freight goes through a website called CH Robinson. They're just a third party. They quote all the freight companies.
Mm-hmm.
So when I give you a freight quote, I'm looking at, I think, 9 or 10 different companies, finding the best price, the most convenient terminals for drop off and pickup, and you put all your information in and it gives you a quote. So
It's not as good as it used to be. Yellow was the.
Oh my God,
We were. Yeah, I can understand why Yellow went out of business. It was so cheap to ship. When you guys saw us doing road trips and we were like going to swap meets and buying in California or Seattle, and we were shipping like 8 pallets. We were
So
paying,
the last one we did from Seattle,
that was I was right before Yellow went out of business.
we almost didn't. I was worried we were not going to get those pallets.
That's right, because it was when it was like that.
They were just going out of business.
Yeah.
So we shipped 5 pallets back from Yellow. Yeah, because remember we had to build the tire one.
Oh yeah,
We had to like do it at the terminal. It was $1,000 to send 5 pallets from Seattle to PA.
and
They were 48 by 40 standard size, 5 foot tall.
yeah. So and these pallets were
Heavy.
packed
Yeah.
and heavy, and we packed signs and tires and wheels,
Rear
and,
ends. The one had rear axles.
rear axles
from Wills.
Oh yeah, so there was a lot of stuff. So it was insanely cheap. Now again, it was the same idea. If you knew how to pack the stuff and where their cutoffs were for size limits and things, that's a big part of it. I learned that with FedEx and UPS over the years, what their oversized charge was for size.
Oh yeah,
and
don't
weight
dance
limits.
around that dimension. They will bend you over. UPS's oversized charge is $1,500.
Ooh,
Yeah,
holy moly.
yeah. Don't dance around that dimension because they will stick it to you hard.
Yeah. So we were doing that for a while. But yeah, that's another thing. If you're thinking about doing this more seriously, don't be afraid to do freight. It is a lot more work, or if you're not used to doing it. But once you do it a few times, it gets.
I just did 3 of them yesterday,
Yeah,
in like an hour and a half.
So we ship. I've never been afraid to ship something to anywhere in the world if the person's willing to pay. Now, obviously, we're running a business that we don't charge customers to for handling. We just build the pallet and we just do it. But that's because we're looking to sell. If we make it hard for a customer with hidden charges, I feel like sometimes it hurts the business. But I can understand if you're an individual and you don't do this all the time, then you may need to add an extra $100 for your time to palletize it. But if you explain that to the buyer, they'll probably understand. You just be like, look, I got to go find a pallet and blah blah blah. But doing freight isn't as hard as you think. If you have a pickup truck, you can probably do freight. I mean, you just take it over.
Yeah, the biggest hack is drop off and your customer can pick up at the terminal.
yeah.
And it makes, all 3 items that I shipped yesterday I dropped them off and they will get picked up at the terminal. And it just makes it super convenient for everyone.
And that's the other thing when people do quotes, a lot of times they do, delivered to a person's home. And like a semi with a lift gate, they bend you over on the charges.
They bend you over on the lift gate and they bend you over if it's a residential
Delivery.
Yeah. You get hit. It's like $275 for both of those additional.
Yeah, so that makes freight seem really expensive. So if you do those little things, it's helpful, and that's help. It's definitely helps a lot of sales for us that we don't mind shipping freight, and sometimes we ship a lot of stuff overseas for people that a couple guys will get together or one person will buy a bunch of their stuff and ship it on one pallet, and it instead of them buying 10 things, they ship all 10 at one time, and it makes it a little easier. So. But yeah, I think that's some of the big stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. In the end of the day, you got to put the work in and the time. There's no way around the work to make the extra money to do that. It's gonna be work. It's not gonna. There's sometimes that it's not fun for us. But I think anybody can do it. It's just
putting the time in putting the time in is the big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's and the research part of it is the part I can't stress enough. It's hard to make money if you're not educated.
And there's some apps out there. I'm not going to give a plug on, but there's some apps out there that you can use to look at previous. Doesn't work for auto parts, unfortunately, but you can look at previous sold listings going back as long as eBay's existed.
There's a ton of websites that like I've used over the years for all different things.
Yeah.
Finding where the stuff is for sale, finding out what it's worth, identifying it. If that's the crazy thing to me is that people complain about this stuff while they're holding their cell phone in their hand.
Oh.
Scrolling Facebook, it's like you can use your phone to find out most of this stuff. And there's been some people at auctions, when I used to go to auctions regularly, that were the biggest competitors, and they knew nothing about automotive. They were just good at searching on their phone, using the Googles.
Yep.
And using their brain and the tool they have, the cell phone, and you can figure out a lot of stuff. And I mean that's going to be a big help if you're trying to learn. You're never going to beat somebody that's super educated on their own. And there's been so many instances where the really good stuff is you're not going to find on the internet because it's that rare. Mm-hmm. And that's when you have to be educated on what it is, a real one versus repro, all that stuff. Because when you're standing at a yard sale or at a flea market and you can't find it, I mean, you got to know that stuff, and your intuition is sometimes going to be, your biggest asset there.
Yep.
So that's kind of a wrap up on some business talk, so to speak. We've been getting people that ask us, and we've also gotten some people in person that have told us they have enjoyed some of these motivation, business-related podcasts on it, so that's why we're touching on those a little bit. I apologize if you have no interest in selling on the internet. This is probably, you've already turned us off 10 minutes.
They didn't even make it past the intro.
Yeah, but if you're interested in that stuff, hopefully it's helpful for you guys, and you can, maybe make a few bucks to either help fund your hobby or maybe help make a few bucks to go on a family vacation or maybe even take it as far as we have where it can become your career. So hopefully this is a little motivating. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. We'll catch you next time. See ya.